All set?
Okay.
So I'll call this meeting to order. This is the Human Relations Commission meeting for today, April 16th, 2025. We'll do a little roll call here. Just go around the room to roll call,
Renato Guevara, present.
especially since we have a new member. Okay.
Dallas Doan, present.
I'm George Kevin Elliott. I go by Kevin, present.
Joe Master Simone, present.
George Kevin Elliott?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. And we do have I think, a quorum. Next on the agenda is to approve the minutes for the meeting that we had on January 29th, 2025. Did people have a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting? Any changes, additions, subtractions? Motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We're in the public comment section. I don't see anybody here in person for a public comment. Is there anybody out in the virtual world?
It's just us.
Okay, nobody out in the virtual world. Okay, great. So we'll go to agenda items. We'd like to welcome our newly appointed commissioner, George Kevin Elliott. I was wondering, you wanted to go by Kevin?
Yeah.
Okay, and could you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Well, we had actually done this round of introductions and information gathering last time, and you probably saw that on the video. Maybe you can just share a little bit about yourself and your interest in this committee.
Sure. My name's Kevin Elliott. I was born and raised in the area. I'm married, and my husband and I have 2 children in the Lawrence Public Schools. I've been involved in LGBTQIA activism in Lawrence since 1980. I've worked with undocumented immigrants, especially in immunization and public health. I have a long history of working in advocacy with people with disabilities, and I'm a community organizer for people who are unhoused. I've considered the work of the Human Relations Commission, especially in today's climate, more important than ever. Immigrants, even those who've come to this country with authorized paperwork, are being rounded up and taken away. Trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people are being targeted for discrimination. Queer, Black, Brown, Asian, and Indigenous people are being erased from history. And Lawrence may not be able to change what's happening on the national level, but we have a say of what happens in our own community. And HuRC is one of the many voices in Lawrence that can make a difference. And it's my hope that we take that responsibility seriously. And from what I've seen, this commission does.
I agree with you. This will be challenging times. Yes, so I wanted to welcome you. Thank you so much for joining. And I really, I'm thankful for your background.
Yeah, that was
I
awesome.
think diversity is just extremely important, and to be able to have different mindsets and different perspectives, I think just makes our experience richer, and will make whatever product we create here so much richer as well. So thanks so much for joining us.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm wondering whether we could just let Kevin know a little, just a sentence or two, not as elaborate as last time, but a little bit about who the rest of us are. And I can start. I'm Irving Koo. I'm a retired psychiatrist. Unlike you, I have only been in Lawrence for 3 years, but I found it an extremely welcoming community. I came here because of a woman who, I guess I made her an honest woman, because we just got married two weeks ago, which is really cool.
Congrats.
Congrats.
Thanks. I have while I was at the VA, I was the head of our DEI committee for the network that I belong to. Just really interested in how diversity and equity really go hand in hand, and how it works together. I was really interested in how really, when I was at the VA trying to hire more a much more diverse group of people, as well as trying to look at being able to dig culturally into, so that clinically we weren't just looking at a patient and their symptoms, but also the culture and environment that they were coming from and how that was manifesting within the veterans that I was seeing. So pretty cool. Yeah, I've been retired for about 2.5 years now.
Yeah, Renato Guevara, full-time Air National Guard in Topeka with the Air Force. My job is command and control operations out there. It's a little bit confusing to tell you what it is, so it's like a base intelligence kind of thing. But I joined this commission, make a difference in the city, do my part. Married, 2 kids, 5 and 3, so they keep me busy all day when I'm not working. And just happy to be here. Moved to Lawrence about 3 years ago from New York, so big change. Liking it out here. My family loves it, so just trying to do my part.
We have some Lawrence newbies here. It's my second year here at Lawrence. So Dallas Stone, I'm a faculty member here in town. I teach in the areas of educational leadership and policy studies, particularly equity in education. So that is what I'm really passionate about, is helping students thrive in school and be successful in college later on. Joined this committee as a way to get involved. I feel like I might have something to give back, and I thought this was a great way to be able to do it. So excited to be here and meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Joe Master Simone. This is my 18th year in Lawrence, so I feel like a townie almost, I guess. No, not quite. I'm on the full-time faculty at Washburn. At the law school, I teach labor and employment law courses and practice labor and employment law. I was the general counsel for the Kansas Human Rights Commission for a number of years before full-time teaching. And like Dallas, I thought this was a good way to sort of give back. I've got some expertise, and it's a nice way to serve the community. So happy to be here.
So we have a lot of experience, a lot of expertise in different areas, which I think will really be helpful for us. That'll be great. I don't know, Helena, does he know you? Does he need to know something about you?
Sure, yes, I will go. I am Kalina Coleman. I'm the Organizational Equity Coordinator for the City of Lawrence, and I just assist with liaisoning, if you will. I don't know if that's the proper verb form of that or action of that, but yes, I'm here to assist in whatever way you guys feel is necessary.
Okay. And then were we able to get Mr. Farris in yet, or?
Yeah,
Where
Yes.
is he?
in the Zoom.
In the Zoom.
His camera's not on, but he's in the.
Yeah,
Hey,
I am here. Good evening. Unfortunately, my video camera is not working with the Zoom app for some reason this evening. But hey, I'm Ferris Muhammad. I'm the Director of Equity and Inclusion with the City of Lawrence. Been with the City of Lawrence for just over 4 years or so now, and it's privileged to serve as the staff liaison to the Human Relations Commission. And please consider me and Kalina as well as resources for you all to try to help be instrumental in whichever way we can.
all right, wonderful. Thank you. Next on the agenda, wow, we really have the privilege of, we have a formal presentation. I don't know how formal, but we have a presentation from with Attorney Zach Fridell from the city, and we had wanted kind of a look at what the complaint process that we were supposed to be looking at here, and wanted someone with some experience and expertise to kind of guide us through what exactly it looked like, and I think Zach is here to help us out.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chairman. If you're all right, I'll sit here so I'm not standing behind folks at the podium.
Absolutely.
Zach, pull that microphone towards you.
Will do. I've got the PowerPoint going as well.
Awesome, excellent.
Well, thank you very much, Chairman, members of the Commission. I'm Zach Fridell. I'm a Senior Assistant City Attorney here with the City of Lawrence, and I'm also the Director of the Human Relations Division. I've been with the City of Lawrence for about 3.5 years now. Most of my time is spent doing labor and employment law, but I also work with human relations issues as well. Previously, I worked with the Reviser of Statutes Office in Topeka, a division of the Kansas Legislature. So my goal here today is kind of to tell you about the laws and processes in the complaint process for enforcing the anti-discrimination provisions of the City of Lawrence. I also hope to explain some more about the roles of the board versus the division and ways that we can cooperate to achieve the goals of the city. I also have some updates on some recent cases to kind of give you a taste of what we've been working with lately and where we stand in a couple outstanding cases. So the Human Relations Division, the city staff charged with promoting anti-discrimination ordinances through outreach, investigation, and enforcement. City Code, Chapter 10, we'll be talking about quite a bit, designates the city attorney as the director of the division. That's Tony Wheeler. She's my boss. She's the city attorney over our office. She also has the power to designate and delegate authority and responsibility. So she has designated that I will be the director of the division. And I've been acting in that capacity for a couple months now, working in cases and conciliation. Other names that you'll run across who are instrumental in the process are Ashley Chavez. She's the senior administrative assistant in the city attorney's office, and she's also our unofficial outreach coordinator, but does a lot of work getting the word out around town. If you've seen the display on the ground floor of City Hall, that was her. She put that up. I encourage you to go down and look if you haven't seen it yet. Just an example of some of the displays that we put out to spread awareness of the provisions of Chapter 10. We also have Deborah Barnes. She's our intake attorney. She is with the city attorney's office, and she's the first step for people who have a complaint and bring it to the city. And I'll kind of go through that process later as well. We also work closely with a couple outside attorneys. Michelle Stewart is our litigator. She is active for the city in a number of different ways, and she will take cases to court as necessary or defend city ordinances. We also work with Laura Krugel-Pabst. She's with a firm out of Kansas City, and she performs our investigations. We have a contract with her where we send her information, and she gets back to us with an investigative report. So everything we do in the Human Relations Division is under Chapter 10 of the City Code of Lawrence. Generally, it was passed in 1962. It was most recently amended in February 2023, and we did add some additional protections, including immigration status, provides protections to persons who are survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, or stalking. And we also have a source of income provision that was added. And so these, some relate more to housing and some to employment rights, but the classes generally are race, sex, religion, color, national origin, age, ancestry, familial status, sexual orientation, gender identity, disability, source of income, immigration status, and survivor status. Oh, and I should note that we also added hairstyle as a protected quality of the race class as well. So we do have hairstyle as a protected class as well, or status. So what is covered? Well, it's all residents of Lawrence in housing, employment, and public accommodation on the basis of a protected class. So this is through a complaint-based process. This isn't something where we go out and actively try to find cases. We instead encourage people to come and make a complaint to the city, and then we follow up on that. That's why outreach is very important, and I think that's something that we can coordinate on and help each other to get the word out, to maybe generate awareness within the city. So the goal is always to have compliance in the discriminatory practice. If we can find a resolution where everybody's happy, sooner the better. But it can result in damages, can result in fines, and especially only in housing cases. And any of those fines are remitted to the city general fund.
So, is KU covered? I'm just thinking about the issue going on with the dorm there.
So it would be any resident of Lawrence. We would have to take a look at, I think this would be a good time to look at the overlap of laws as well, because there are other protections for students and student housing. And so this is in the context of federal and state laws, but certainly all residents of Lawrence are covered by Chapter 10 of the City Code.
Okay, thank you.
There are some exceptions for fraternal, like lodges, so we'd have to examine that. So in the context of our laws, we do have state and federal laws that provide similar protections, and we work closely with state and federal agencies. We do work with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. You'll hear HUD a lot. And we receive funding from them and submit reports to them about the progress of cases as they progress. It's important to note that city ordinance is more expansive than state and federal law in the classes that are covered. And this has especially come up recently with the source of income provision that was added into city code and is currently being challenged. I think the advantage of this process versus the state or federal processes is that it is a low barrier entry. It's a local process. It doesn't require a complainant to hire an attorney unless they want to. We do represent the complainant if it goes to a litigation in court or mediation. So it does provide an easy access to get these practices stopped if that's necessary.
Did you mention that you guys are at least partially federally funded?
We do receive grants from HUD for the specific purpose of housing discrimination cases, and we do report to them through their web portal. We have a coordinator we report to with the update of our cases as they progress.
Okay.
So the division handles the complaint intake, investigation, and outreach. And a large part of that is that there are specific timelines that have to be hit once a complaint does come to the city. We have to respond according to city code and in a very prescribed manner, and we have to make sure that we hit those deadlines so that if this does go to court, our processes will be upheld. The board is involved in outreach, hearings, and giving and receiving feedback from the City Commission. And I'd refer you to Resolution 7472. I know that was part of the orientation materials, just kind of about the communication between this commission and the City Commission as far as going back and forth with suggestions, advice, requests for information. And Dr. Mohammed would be your contact liaison as you go through that process. So outreach is very important, like I said, because awareness is important to keep the process moving. And it's important for people to know that they can come to the division with complaints. So some of the ways we've done that, we've tabled at events. We do public roundtables, especially when we had the latest update to the ordinance with the source of income. I was out at public meetings answering questions. Kalina was there and trying to explain what was coming in the law so it wasn't a surprise for anyone. We also coordinate with local agencies when they do outreach. And we do flyers and notices at public buildings. You might just see down on Mass if they have a bulletin board. We've at least stuck a pamphlet on there at some point. I don't know if it's still there. But we do have outreach materials, and we're trying to expand the access to that. There's also a city newsletter that we put information in, and we can include information in utility bills as necessary. That's something that we did to inform landlords of changes to the law. We do have an active, robust website. I encourage you to visit it. It has the outline of the process. It has a place for complainants to file that complaint. It answers some questions and has some contact information for people who need more information. It is a main source of information for people who come with questions to the city. So the complaint process. This is generally how it goes, and I'm going to direct your attention first to the bottom where conciliation is attempted throughout this process. So I'm sorry, it's a little small down there, but the point is we're always trying to conciliate. We're always trying to resolve the situation as soon as possible. So at any point where we can reach a resolution, we do that. The first step is intake, and that's Deborah Barnes, our assistant city attorney and intake coordinator. She makes sure that all the information provided by the complainant is provided on the form, make sure that they have standing, that they're an aggrieved person, that they have timeliness, that it was within 90 days for public accommodation or employment, or 1 year for housing. Also make sure that we have jurisdiction. For example, for employment cases, the employer has to employ 4 or more employees who are not members of their immediate family. There are different provisions we have to look at to make sure that we can respond to that case. So Deborah puts that information together when a complaint arrives into a formal complaint. and we forward that to Laura Kriegel-Pabst, our investigator, to create an investigative report. Now, what she does is multifaceted. She can go to a site for a site visit. She can make phone calls, emails, meet with people and have in-person interviews. We do have a subpoena power issued under Chapter 10 of City Code. If we do need to issue subpoenas for documents, we don't typically have to do that because we do have coordination and cooperation. But she puts together an investigative report of the complaint that's been made. Now, once she has that, it goes to a determination of cause or no cause. And that's when it'll come to me, and I review the information in the investigative report. And that's like a probable cause hearing in a criminal case. It's something where we decide if this, more likely than not, that there has been a violation and that we would proceed. At this point, I can also ask if there's more information that I need, or ask Laura to go back to get additional details to make sure that we have a full picture of whether we think it's likely that a violation occurred. After that, we go to what's called the conciliation conference. And that's similar to a mediation. It's similar to a negotiation sometimes. But what it is both sides get together and sit down at a table to try to resolve the conflict, whether it's an accommodation issue where they need a ramp put in, see what can be done and how quickly that can be put in place. It can be that if they were denied housing in one unit, can they move into another unit? There are a number of outcomes that could come out of this, including payments to the aggrieved person or just an end to the discriminatory practice. This does not require either side to hire an attorney. Either side may hire an attorney to be a part of the process, and the city is represented by myself or another attorney. Hopefully, we get a satisfactory result, and it can end there. But if we don't get a resolution to the conciliation, then we provide a notice of public hearing. So that notice says that it's going to go to a public hearing in front of a hearing of at least 3 members of this board. At that point, the respondent, that is the person who is alleged to have done the discriminatory act, could elect to go to district court instead. And we find that that is not uncommon, that they would rather go to district court and make their arguments there. So if that goes to district court, then that goes to the civil side, and we have Michelle Stewart litigate it for us. And there's always a possibility of a resolution to that case and a settlement before trial, or it can go to trial. If it goes to a public hearing, it calls for at least 3 members of this board to sit as hearing officers and to issue a finding. After that finding, and this isn't a part of the slide, but after the finding, we can go to the court for enforcement of any of those findings, whether it's damages, fines, or compliance with our anti-discrimination laws. So we do have a court backup if necessary. So if it does come to a public hearing, like I said, we issue the notice. At least 3 commissioners will sit on that. It has to be between 30 and 90 days after we issue the notice and to determine the outcome of the complaint. And that's outlined in Chapter 10, the specific provisions of what the commission can find. The respondent, complainant appear with or without an attorney. Of course, the city is represented by an attorney. We use rules of evidence like a civil case. We also have the hearing commissioners state findings of fact and issue orders to remedy the discrimination. We can also order damages and civil penalties. On a first offense for a housing penalty, it can be a $10,000 penalty. For repeated offenses, it can be up to $50,000, and that goes to the city general fund. Appeal is available from that hearing to district court, so it could end up in court anyway.
If it does go to court, is it a trial de novo at the district court, or is the district court bound by the factual findings of the commission?
They are not bound by the
They're not
factual-
bound, so
right.
it starts all over.
Right,
Which is why they often just go to district court, I guess.
correct, correct. And an important part of this is the confidentiality of the process. Chapter 10 does lay out that cases are to remain confidential unless and until they go to a public hearing, and that can be district court as well. So we are aware of that and conscious of that, so we don't release a lot of details, or any details of a pending case, and very few cases of resolved cases, unless they have become public or as a result of the conciliation, the parties have agreed to waive their confidentiality.
What if the alleged offender is the city?
then that would be a conflict of interest, and the city wouldn't handle that case. We would refer that to another agency, for example, the EEOC or the HUD, whoever would be the appropriate party. But we would obviously want to resolve it as a city and address that internally, but we wouldn't investigate it as the investigative body because of the conflict of interest. So possible outcomes include, best case scenario, into the bad practice. Can be resolved. Sometimes it's very early in the process. As soon as a complaint is made and the first phone calls go out, they say, oh, I wasn't aware, or okay, I'll address it, and it can be resolved very quickly. It can also result in monetary damages. That can be actual damages if there was a displacement of housing, things like that. Fines in the housing cases, as I addressed. It can also go to litigation. And the city, this is important, the city does pay for the legal fees. We do continue to represent these cases if they go to district court. And so we are representing at least one person in district court right now. And additionally, training. This can be part of the conciliation. It can be part of a finding by the hearing officers. But it is not uncommon to require training for the party that allegedly committed the discrimination, whether it's the staff at the apartment complex or at a business, to stop the practice from happening again. So here's a little overview provided by Deborah Barnes of the intake that she received in 2024. So of the cases that she received intake information from, 8 were employment, 2 were public accommodation, and 19 were housing. 6 withdrew or did not respond to her request for more information. 5 conflicts of interest, and this was either close to the city or maybe somebody worked for the city who was involved in it on one side or the other. And so we do make sure that we avoid those conflicts of interest and have another agency address those, and we refer the complainant to the appropriate agency. There were 5 contractual disputes that didn't fall under Chapter 10. 2 were cases where there was no jurisdiction, somebody was outside city limits, or another jurisdictional issue. 1 was referred to another agency for more appropriate follow-up. 2 were dropped complaints that resolved it themselves. 5, so these numbers you'll notice don't add up to 29 because there's some overlap here, but of these 29, 5 were source of income complaints, 2 were disability accommodation complaints, 1 familial status, 1 national origin, and 1 case that we didn't accept because it was already under a court order, so it had already been litigated. And as far as case updates, I can share some information with you from a couple different avenues. The first is the source of income ordinance passed by the city was challenged by a group of landlords and was taken to district court. The district court found in favor of the city and said that the ordinance was constitutional. They have appealed that to the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals held oral arguments a couple weeks ago. We were represented by Michelle Stewart, and they will issue their finding within 60 days. So the issues being challenged in that case are the source of income primarily, and the immigration status was to a lesser degree at the appellate level. The allegation is that the source of income is unconstitutionally vague and requires a search and seizure in an unconstitutional manner. The city is defending this. We believe it is constitutional, and we hope to have a good outcome from the Court of Appeals. Whatever the Court of Appeals decides, we'll of course let you know and update ordinances as necessary if we have to after that. We also have a couple individual cases. There was a case about source of income regarding Section 8 payments that the landlord refused to accept the payments, and that's at the district court level. It's set for trial at the middle of June. I think we're kind of waiting to see what the appellate court says before, we know what's going to happen in that case, but that is one that is in district court right now. We also had a source of income that was settled recently. It was a young woman who was using disability vouchers at an apartment complex. The apartment wouldn't accept the vouchers, and so we went through a conciliation process. The conciliation failed. It went to district court. At the district court level, they decided to settle the case before going to trial. The terms of the settlement are not confidential, so she received $14,000 and agreed to not disparage the apartment complex. So she received some amount of money for her difficulty in having to find other housing. And I think those are the major updates I have for you. But I would be happy to answer any questions you have about the process or how we can work together to achieve some outreach.
Yeah. A couple of questions. One is, I'm looking at this chapter 10, and it says that 10-104.11, to permit the initiation of a complaint or complaints by an individual commissioner when a commissioner has reason to believe that unlawful discrimination is being. So one of us, if someone tells, I mean, it may not be that we feel as if we're personally being discriminated against, but we have a constituent or someone come up to us and say, hey, I understand you're on the HRC and I'm having this problem. And we can go to initiate the process?
That's correct. It does allow the initiation of a complaint by a commissioner. That might require you to recuse yourself later if it does go to a public hearing. You know, what we found more often is if you hear that from someone, you can refer them to do the intake themselves.
Directly, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that has been the case so far. But you're correct, the code does allow if for some reason you want to file it yourself, you can do that.
Okay. And do you have a sense of what the, at least in your opinion, what the best way for your group and our group to be able to work together would be?
Sure. I think a great way for us to work together would be through outreach. There was a resource fair at the library yesterday, and we had a couple of folks there with a table set up. We would love to coordinate with the board to get more involvement and let you know when those are happening. I know there will be another couple this year, and we can work through your liaison and Kalina as well to get information to you so we can coordinate for those types of events.
Yeah, that'd be terrific. I think some of those of us who might have time to be able to, participate in tabling, that would be a good thing.
That'd be wonderful.
Would we work together to reach out to the neighborhood organizations
Sure.
and present to them together?
So as a matter of presentations, we don't typically just go give a presentation unless there's a kind of a change in law, something new going on. But as far as getting information to them, absolutely. We can provide flyers and handouts and information that we could get to those groups anytime. Yes.
This is probably where I can insert, I know it's the last organization style of the Human Relations Commission. They ended up kind of breaking off into groups that would work on particular topics that fall under the umbrella of what's covered for this commission. And so you probably wouldn't be all together, tabling it or I guess, promoting it unless it was like it had to be like announced, like, or, like this meeting, it couldn't be, it couldn't violate the, yes. And so that may be something that you guys want to like rethink about, that concept of maybe having subgroups to work on maybe specific things when you want to really go and target something. So, but that's completely up to you. This is not, this is not me putting it in your mouth, but yes.
Yeah, and to that point, Colleen, I just want to add to that to say that based on a new resolution, I think in order for a advisory board to form sort of subgroups, it is something that has to be accepted by the governing body of the commission, I believe. So I might want to double check on that, or Zach, you may have something to weigh in on that. That sound accurate? I remember some conversation with the city clerk's office pertaining to that.
I have the resolution in front of me, so I'll look into that, but I do know that there are some guardrails on the subgroups at this point, and especially when it comes to quorum and Open Meetings Act.
So I'm sorry.
Zach, I had a question on 10.104.8. I'll read it. To receive, investigate, decide, and attempt to conciliate a complaint or complaints alleging discrimination, etc. In what ways would this committee receive, investigate, and decide some of these complaints?
I would say that the way that this committee or this commission would largely receive those complaints would be in the hearing process. And that's largely because this is a very time-sensitive process is we get the complaint and have to investigate it and respond in a timely manner. So it's not always feasible to have this group involved in that stage of the process. But when it gets to the hearing, if there is a public hearing, that would be the place for this commission to hear those complaints directly.
And I presume there would be some pretty stringent training and guidelines for us to set on to hear a case.
You're correct. Chapter 10 has a section about what is expected of the commissioners, and we would sit down and give you training ahead of time as well. Yes.
Has there ever been a public hearing that had to be held in recent memory?
In recent memory, there hasn't been a public hearing.
All right. So it almost feels as if the chances of a complaint coming through here are kind of slim.
Yeah, it is likely slim. It's more likely that you would hear a result of a conciliation, because those do happen more often, and that's, the goal of the case is to get the conciliation as soon as possible.
Is it possible to make that part of the regular agenda where we could get, to the extent that there's an update to give on status of cases and conciliation and settlements, that we could get that information regularly?
Yeah, that's something that I can work with Dr. Mohammed with. And I think, we do have to be very aware of the confidentiality.
Obviously.
But, so I just don't want to make promises that we can't follow up on. But in the context of things that are publicly available, absolutely.
Just not even like
Sure.
numbers of cases. We resolved so many cases this month, just, to the extent we can't get the details, just to get a sense for what's going on.
Sounds good.
Okay. So on a slightly different topic, let's say Kevin, one of the groups that he works with, tells him, hey, we'd really like a presentation on what you guys do here at the HRC. What are the hoops that, at first, is that possible? And if it is possible, what are the hoops that he would have to jump through in order to make that happen?
Okay, so it would be, you're saying one individual just promoting?
Well, I can give you a more specific example.
Okay.
I live in North Lawrence. We have a very active neighborhood organization. Within the past week, somebody active in the neighborhood organization decided to expel every member of the group that speaks out in favor of queer and trans members. Now, they did that on Facebook. That's not covered by HRC because that's a private entity. So there's no complaints to be filed. However, it's caused disruption in the neighborhood, and it's caused a lot of turmoil within the neighborhood. So the neighborhood has come to me and asked me what can they do because they know I've recently been elected to the HRC. That was something I was going to bring up, not tonight, actually. I was going to bring that up separately. But it seems appropriate to this point in the conversation. They want to know, HRC talks about civil rights within the city of Lawrence. They wanted to know what HRC does and how the neighborhood can work with HRC to build relationships. Is there a presentation the HRC can give to the North Lawrence Improvement Association? North Lawrence Improvement Association has nothing to do with what happened. They've distanced themselves from this individual. They're not a part of what's happened. They're not an offender. They're a great organization, and they want to improve the neighborhood. They would like to meet with HRC, maybe, if it seems appropriate. How would they reach out to us, and what could we do with them?
So in that capacity of you wanting to,
Just build community relations.
okay, yeah, build that community relations. I'm trying to see how that would fall under, I guess that's one of those things where we'll have to maybe just evaluate the ordinance or the resolution a little bit further, but.
They would be interested in hearing about how people in the neighborhood could file complaints. They'd be interested in knowing more about landlords and their rights and responsibilities. They'd be interested in
Maybe some of the outreach that was
yeah,
mentioned.
in what HRC does.
And so would that fall under, yeah, like I guess you being able to just explain what the Human Relations Commission is?
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, I think if I could, I guess, jump in on that one, I guess. I think maybe the best process would be if it's a community member who may communicate it to one of you all as commissioners, maybe kind of reach out to myself or Kalina, and maybe we can figure out how to best coordinate that so that way there's not one sort of elected, somebody from the advisory board sort of speaking for the collective without a vote taking place and, you know, being the voice of not just the advisory board, the Human Relations Commission, but also the city. So maybe it's best to kind of either communicate that to myself or Kalina as a staff liaison or Attorney Fridell and figure out what's the best way to go about coordinating that. Of course, members of the public can always come to one of these meetings. I know it's currently kind of a quarterly meeting, so that might not be as responsive as some community members may want. So that's where it probably would be best to kind of communicate, or as you as an advisory board member, maybe communicate and work with myself or Kalina and try to figure out what's the best way to be responsive to that.
Well, I know you've made it clear that you're concerned I'm going to say something. I'm not. I know better. I just was passing a message.
And I'm not sure who the question is, maybe Zach, maybe for somebody else, but does the city do, you said you do training when there's some change in the law or some prospective change in the law. Does the division provide, like if an employer wanted harassment training or discrimination training, has the division ever done things like that in terms of outreach on the employer side, or know your rights, like maybe a school, the high school wants to have someone come in to talk about kids that are going into the workforce, what rights might they have against discrimination? Do we do sort of training modules?
As far as the division, the training that is provided is usually the result of a violation, where it's to stop that violation from occurring in the future. We don't do outreach generally. I envision that could be something that the board, the commission could be involved with, but we are not staffed to that level
Right.
to provide.
Not a criticism, just a
Sure,
question.
sure, but I don't see that would be feasible right now for the division to send staff to those kind of trainings absent some major change in the law like we saw with the last ordinance. But I do think that the division can provide information, flyers, pamphlets, to enable the commission to do outreach as you all deem fit.
But I think that doing something proactively would be as effective or sometimes more effective than just being a response to a complaint kind of thing.
There's certainly different things, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Sure.
if there's an employer or a landlord that's violating, they need the training so that doesn't happen again. But I agree that the opportunities to sort of get the message out about what the city ordinance does, what rights it provides, can be helpful in a couple of ways.
I would also, just in the basis of the new resolution for commission activity, I would recommend that you work through your liaison with the city commission to receive direction from them as well about where they would like that time being spent.
And we have some openness. We get to decide kind of what our roles can be in cooperation with the city. That's one of the things we're going to discuss tonight. So.
Absolutely. Any other questions for Zach?
I think we can let Zach go home.
Yeah, I'm going to look at this. So Zach, I just want to make sure that I can utilize it. If you are here, I'm just going to look and see if you can explain anything better than me, so or what we may have already gone over. So receiving of the public comment is on your agenda, but I think that was covered. And Zach, did you have any information on public comment? No, or is that more of a, I think I know what, okay, that's probably more of a city clerk discussion piece. And then the chapter 10, of course, we've given you all access to that, and just want to make sure. And then calling special meetings, inviting guests, which we did, we covered with Zach coming. So I think, yeah, I don't have any extra questions for Zach, but I just wanted to make sure before he gets out of here.
Zach, a question regarding the complaint process. I know after intake, you guys do a site survey if it's deemed like legit, right?
That can be part of the investigative process, correct?
Is there a way that one of the commissioners could go maybe and see the whole as an observation? kind of deal, or is it like a quick turnaround? Like you get the process today and tomorrow you do the.
So two things. One, it's a pretty quick turnaround as far as our investigator and coordinating with her schedule. She's an attorney in Kansas City, so she does it quickly, but it's on her schedule. And also, there is kind of a confidentiality provision there because the complaint isn't public at that point. So I don't know that that would be possible to do a site visit at that stage in the investigation.
Is there any training we could take, almost like a HIPAA kind of thing, like confidentiality? Safe keep it, you know what I'm saying?
Sure. I don't think that kind of training really exists. It's not a kind of a waivable confidentiality. I don't think that there would be quite a training on that topic. Sorry.
No, thank you.
All right.
All right, well, thank you.
All right.
Really do
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, and please, if you get a chance to look downstairs at the display, kind of get an idea of what we do for tabling and the outreach we have down there.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Good job, Zach.
Thanks, Kurt.
All right. Next on the agenda, continued discussion on the direction of the board and outreach efforts, and I think we've kind of started that with this discussion right here. Any thoughts about the direction? I know I might have a couple, but
I mean, I like the idea of being proactive versus reactive. You know, if we can formulate some type of plan for that.
yeah.
I saw that on the agenda. I typed up a couple notes.
Sure.
I'd like to see HRC use the same word. I use the same word, take a proactive role, ensuring that Title I neighborhoods, Haskell, LGBT, immigrant, BIPOC communities, points of views are represented, and in everything, in legislation, budgeting, policy, housing, parks, infrastructure, strategic planning. Now, I'm not suggesting that we try to be everything everywhere all at once. We can't do that. We don't have the capacity. We don't have the skills. We don't have the charge. But we're newly reformed, and we can refresh what we do. And we're here to serve the city. We're here to serve the communities we answer to. And we're here to listen and insert ourselves when and where we have the opportunity to match our abilities, skills, and talents. So we can refresh we don't have to do what's been done. We can do something new.
Absolutely. Yeah. It almost feels as if my initial concept of this commission has changed quite a bit. So it went from, we've got this whole complaint process to the complaint almost never gets up here.
Right.
So, and maybe that's why when I spoke with the previous commissioner, he said, we never gotten any complaints. And I thought, how is that possible? But I guess we're really kind of way down the stream in terms of where the process is. So we may have to think about, what else do we really want to focus on? And when I was looking at Chapter 10, and it's to study the problem of discrimination, to promote goodwill, cooperation, conciliation. I mean, these are pretty broad things, but it seems to really focus on a kind of anti-discrimination, which is really pretty broad, and it gives us a lot of latitude on kind of what to struggle with. I feel the immediacy of what you experienced over the past couple of weeks, and when he was talking, I was thinking about the people in the dorm, non-binary students who were going to have to leave because they were going to make that a gender-exclusive dorm. I'm not even sure which one it was, but that if you didn't identify as male, I guess, that you would have to leave there. It felt, as someone with a new stepdaughter going to that school, it felt like taking a huge step backwards, which is what a lot feels like nowadays. So I'm trying to figure out, what do we do? How do we do this? How do we promote this? Public affairs, getting the message out was one thing, but I almost feel a little limited on how we can do that unless we push, which sometimes it's good to push.
Well, it does seem like there is opportunity. Zach said there was a tabling event yesterday, right? So maybe if there was like more communication between us and the Human Relations Division or whatever, we could find those opportunities. The opportunities they're already out in the community, and we could tack onto them. It's one option.
I agree. I think we should show up.
Oh, yeah, I think, any particular event that they're at, we probably need to be at. But this feels as if they're the ones that are initiating it, and we're kind of tagging on to them. I'm wondering, at what point can we initiate something? I think you had even asked, that group had come to you and said, can you help us out with some information about what the HRC does? And,
Well, we have to find out our limitations from Dr. Muhammad about how we can show up. Do there have to be a certain number of us? Do we have to have a quorum show up? Do we have to have, and I understand
Not
those.
having a quorum show up, I think, is the key.
Yeah.
Yeah, not having a quorum show up.
What constitutes like a subgroup? Can one of us, two of us? I think we have to dig into the ordinance a little bit.
Right, okay. So, yeah. So maybe we could talk about this whole subgroup thing. I'm not understanding all of the ramifications of it and all of the advantages that I think that maybe you and Muhammad.
I think perhaps we can meet with you aside, because I don't necessarily need to know all the plans, maybe the direction you want to go in so that we can at least know if that's going to be like what that process would look like to kind of, I guess, prepare in advance, yeah. So then perhaps, are you guys suggesting that you're bringing it to us today, or maybe, are you wanting to?
Well, I think I was just trying to figure out what are the advantages or any disadvantages of having us break up into these small groups that it sounds like would respond to a specialized concern.
Okay. Well, I can take that question, and then we can start there and at least kind of narrow down what that process looks like. And then hopefully from there, you'd be able to better decide if it's something you could attack with the 7, or if it's something you're going to attack with 3 or 4 or 2 or whatever a subgroup would be like. And then, so it sounds like that's your question, is really just kind of knowing how far you can go with that.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what a subgroup would look at. Would it be a housing subgroup versus an employment subgroup versus something else? Would it be looking at racial discrimination versus gender discrimination versus another kind of discrimination? I don't know.
I think that would be something that you guys could decide based on whatever it is that was brought to you, through the community. So whatever the community brought to you, how do you kind of want to maybe break it down or approach it, or, get a basis for it, a foundation, how do you want to, it's up to you. Again, I don't want to.
Yeah. I mean, we could form subgroups, but then we could form them in response to something that comes before us, so that, we just don't indiscriminately start forming subgroups when they may never be needed. But if there was a community complaint or an agency or someone looking for information, then we could look at a subgroup to be able to address that.
Well, and I don't want to get off topic, but that ties into our next subpoint, and that's listening to the people. We need some hearing sessions. What does our community want? And that would kind of help us define what subgroups we need. Mm-hmm. What does our community want?
That's a good idea.
That's how any community-built organization should operate. They should get the direction from the people we serve. I'm 35 years retired nonprofit. That's every successful nonprofit I worked for was built from the bottom up.
So maybe it's targeted outreach to organizations we know of and inviting them to a meeting and hearing what their needs might be?
I mean, yeah, we don't have anybody here for public comments, but it would be really nice for people who had that kind of interest in our group to be able to come here and talk about what their particular needs and interests might be.
Well, and for that to happen, we go to them. We don't sit here and wait for them to come to us.
So one of the items on the agenda is clarification on procedures for inviting guests. I mean, that seems, is there a particular procedure to follow to have organizations come and talk to us and present, or?
Well, it's like with the,
I'm gonna have Ferris speak to it really quickly because we essentially did that, with inviting
With Zach.
Zach,
Right,
yes.
and that's easy because he works for the
Yeah,
city, right?
but I'll let Ferris kind of further.
right, it's still what I meant.
Yes, thanks. No, so a couple of points and a couple of things that have been brought up. One is sort of about some of the subgroups and how to break up into different groups and what that looked like in the past and what that might look like moving forward. So just to kind of speak to that a little bit, I think, so in the past, and of course you all are not bound by things that happened in the past with the previous, your predecessors before the restructuring of this advisory board. Nevertheless, at that time, since the there was 9 members, I think they had 3 different subgroups that they broke up into, addressing 3 different things. I think it was like programming and policy and another issue, I forget what it was, or another category. But of course now with 7 members, then 4 would be a quorum. So of course you can't do 4 and probably wouldn't want to do even 3 to some degree as a group, just in case somebody pops up and now you've got 4 members and now that's a quorum and now that's in violation of sort of an Open Meetings Act. So there are some things to give in consideration to that. And as I kind of like spoke to a little bit earlier, I'm trying to comb through some of the resolutions. I'm trying to remember which one it was, but I do remember coming across something in the resolution that said and spoke to how advisory boards, if they want to do some subgroups, then they need to kind of do it in a draft form and then bring that before the governing body, the city commission, and they have to have that approved in that way. So I just want to get clarification on that before, so that way we don't have to walk anything back thinking that we can move forward this way and then, oops, we can't do it that way. So I just want to kind of proceed with caution with that. So hopefully I can do a report back and maybe communicate that out to you all through email, what that procedure looks like once I find it. To the other point, related to guests, I think on the agenda that was some more so framed based on city employees from different departments coming to speak to the Human Relations Commission. If there is, for an example, like we just had Attorney Zach Fridell tonight from the city attorney's office, but maybe if there's a housing related matter that might require some more expertise addressing housing or affordability or things like that, maybe we can have somebody from our housing department come in. As now with the new structuring and the new resolutions, there's a process in place for going about that. In the past, it was simply, hey, can such and such be here to kind of speak to us about this? And Kalina or I just email that department and say, hey, can you be at this next advisory board meeting? But now there's a process that all advisory boards have to go through to request a city staff member to be present at any of the advisory boards, and it has to be signed off by the city manager. So I think that was the part that we wanted to kind of speak to.
So that wouldn't apply to inviting non-city employees to a particular meeting?
No, that wouldn't be that. That's, I guess, the resolution and the policy that wasn't kind of designed for community members to kind of, from inviting a community member standpoint. So if it's an interest in inviting a community member to come and speak, I guess if that want to be handled as public comment, or if you're saying they want to hold an agenda item placed, maybe something I might have to report back because I hadn't seen that done in the past before, so that would be new to me. So in the interest of making sure I'm providing accurate information, that's something I might want to look into a little bit further as well.
And I think that kind of touches on the resolution number 7528 Ferris shared with me very recently. And so we may really want to kind of delve into that, or, go through that a little bit more as we're making those decisions too, because it spells out some things and we're just kind of looking at it, just like the approach with the special meetings, quorum, public comment. So it's a good one to look up as well. So we can keep that one in hand along with the news advisory board resolution one as well.
Okay, so help me understand. Yes, there's a process for inviting a city employee here. For a non-city employee for us to invite here to speak to us, is there a process?
That's what
That we have to go through?
We have not been approached with that one yet, and so basically we're gonna take it back to the drawing board with these two new resolutions kind of, as a guide as well, and yes, we will get that answer to
I
you.
mean, it sounds like the interest of the city was that the advisory committees were sort of commandeering city staff to come to their meetings, and that has, staffing issues and payment, and overtime, but none of that stuff would apply to, inviting an outside organization to come in, but we'll jump through any
It's
hoops
really
that we
like,
need to
probably
jump
like
through.
a way of setting it, just imagine maybe you set up your meeting in a way that it like mainly involves public comment or
Sure,
something, and maybe
right.
then, you take
Yeah, like
that
whatever the best
information
practice is and
and
do
then
it.
yeah,
Right.
then you come back with the next meeting you discuss or whatever that looks like for you. But I just want to make sure that we'll stick to, kind of how I don't think the policies are too tight on that, but we'll just confirm
Sounds fair.
and see how we can approach it.
But the city is always risk averse, so I imagine they'd be worried if we invite the Communist Party to come speak to us or something, which wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility, but
Yeah, or, yeah. Okay. I had another thought that just left my mind.
I'm sorry.
It'll come back.
Likewise, I had a thought that I sort of forgot to address, and maybe this might hopefully trigger the thought that you have. But as far as like some of the commentary earlier, it kind of was drilling down at sort of purpose and motivations, et cetera. And I guess the thought that I had was looking at, based on with the restructuring of the various advisory boards and how these advisory boards are supposed to be in alignment with the city's strategic plan and under those sort of 5 commitments, which this advisory board will fall under safe and secure. I think that's where you all might be able to receive some guidance to say how is this germane if we want to break up into different subgroups or what that might look like or who we might invite. How might that help farther the city's strategic plan as relates to safety and security for all citizens and community members throughout the city of Lawrence, right? So how does that address an issue or concern surrounding safety and security, and how does that fall under Chapter 10 of the city code, which I think Zach spoke to a bit earlier related to what sort of give this advisory board the level of authority that you all have?
I have a concern about, and maybe the same one that Kevin has, but they're concerned that with having people come here, you had mentioned the idea of outreach. I mean, actually going out and listening to people, and not doing it in this room per se, but actually going out into the community. And I'm not sure whether this commission has ever done that previously, left the confines of this building to go out and listen to the community and do something official or unofficial where we go out and invite the community to come and just let us know what their concerns are with issues of human rights, discrimination, stuff like that. I mean, are there barriers to us being able to go out and do something like that?
Again, those barriers would be the ones that pops in my mind immediately is just the open records.
Yeah,
The considering it a public meeting, an open meeting. And so now, like he said, I guess four would make you.
Yeah, 4 is important.
Yeah, would make that situation happen. So we're going to try and strategically do this in a way that you guys can operate, at your will, but in the confines of, not violating the act for one, and then just kind of remaining in line with how we like to approach the new advisory board structure. So I think that the best thing with this situation from this conversation would be for us to see what that would look like for you guys to go out and individually provide, this information or take in, those comments. And so just what that would look like. And so I think we can get that at least, ironed out. and then, you know, you guys can decide, I guess, what your topics would be or what realm, you know, you're gonna attack with that.
And we'd have to be very careful. It would be just a listening session. We couldn't be speaking on behalf of the commission
Right.
as individuals. Unless we had very
You
prepared.
couldn't say that the commission, you know, determined this. Or
Right.
say this, you know, that would be, I think you guys usually have to vote on, you know, things like
Right.
that, and that gets back into the meeting, and, you know, you being here, having a quorum, and, yeah, so I think at least, you know, let's start with that approach of what does it look like if, you know, they were gonna go out with three of the commissioners, taking and receiving information from the public on topic ABC, then bringing that back to
Then
your
reporting
meeting
back.
perhaps, you know, maybe y'all discuss that here, you know, see where you want to move from there, you know, and how that involves us or some of our processes in chapter 10 and what that looks like. So, yeah, we're here for you. I know it feels like, it's new, right? It's new.
No, I'm with, I don't,
Yeah.
I want to
I
make sure
don't-
we don't do anything that gets us the wrong side of the Kansas Open Meetings Act
Yeah.
or with the city commission, so.
Yeah, and I know you want to get, you know, you want to get on the ground and you want to start running, you know, and so, I understand that feeling. Being in this field, I definitely understand that feeling. And so, yeah, we'll be here for you, you know, along the way, so, yeah.
Yeah, well, if we could also discuss the agenda item on procedures for calling special meetings. So during our last meeting, what we had wanted to do was to have the next meeting in 2 months, right? And it would have happened last month, but Farris contacted me and said, there's a sticking point there. You know, is this a special called meeting? And special called meetings have to be called for special reasons. And is this a special enough reason for us just to meet earlier? Because we just want to get the process running, more quickly. I don't know if I'm explaining that clearly, Farris, or to your recollection as well, but I know that you had concerns that maybe we weren't meeting the letter of the law in terms of, having the meeting in 2 months as opposed to the regularly scheduled 3.
Yes, correct, Chairperson Koo. So within, Resolution 7542, there's a section, Section 2B, that sort of speaks to special meetings, and it has some definition to that, where it speaks to special meetings will be held only for a special purpose and will be called in accordance with city ordinance or applicable state law. And so there has to be for the purpose of publicly notifying the public, hey, this meeting is happening, and have to have a specific agenda item for it to satisfy the requirements of a meeting, I guess. So yes, there has to be a special sort of a purpose that you all are going to address in the city commission is held to that same standard. And in that process, the majority of quorum or majority of the board members will have to sign off in agreement to that special meeting. And so, of course, that's challenging for you all if you don't meet as frequently as the city commissioners who meet 3 times a week. So it's not hard to have everybody present to sign off on a document or majority to sign off on a document. And so it's for that reason that I spoke, my commentary earlier was kind of motivated by this, to where I don't want you all to be under the impression that you are able to do certain things, and then I'm informed by our city attorney's office, for an example, to say, oops, I don't think that might be in violation of our current policy to go about it that way. So we have to kind of reverse that. And so I just want to make sure as we're moving forward, we don't have to walk things back. And so that's why when I speak about being a little bit hesitant on some things and making sure I want to report back and get an accurate answer for you all, this is one of the reasons why. So yes, in the conversation, adding to that, the conversation that I did have with Commissioner Koo was a special meeting, as I understand it, has been advised on it. It can't simply be we want to meet more frequently, so we call it a special meeting to address something that would fall under our current agenda already, right? So it's not like, hey, we're going to have this on the next agenda, but we wanted to just address this earlier. That wouldn't satisfy the requirements of a special meeting. It has to be sort of for a special purpose, something specifically you all addressing, and have to be sort of voted on and signed off on by the majority.
What would be the process if we did want to amend our regularly scheduled meeting time to meet more frequently? To not have it be a special meeting, but to meet,
We've changed
Correct.
our regular meetings to a different frequency.
And I see you got here an agenda, there's a number 6, it's reaffirmation of revised quarterly meeting schedule. So you know
Oh,
you've
thank
got
you.
those Wednesdays, those first Wednesdays at 6. So did you want, maybe you change that word quarterly and you put something else in there? So that's just a thought, but, well, I'll let him take over to get you to that point. He'll lead you there.
Well, I'm not sure if I'll be. I know there was a sense that meeting every 3 months provided no momentum at all for getting things done. And meeting more frequently would perhaps allow us not only to get that, whatever processes we want going, to get it going, but it will allow us to get to know each other better, to work, more closely with each other, to have a sense of what each other's interests are, and how we work. Just to make it kind of more efficient, and every 3 months just did not seem to be promoting that kind of efficiency. And so I don't know if there's
You
an.
guys can maybe revote on that if you want to, once you get down here, or, just let me know, because I think that something would be willing to kind of reevaluate it if you all,
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe we could what do you guys think about the meeting schedule? I mean, is 3 months satisfactory to you guys? And I can see in some ways, yeah, that'd be great. But would there be any advantages or thoughts that you would have about changing the frequency?
I think it would make sense to meet more regularly, particularly in the beginning, since everything is getting reconstituted and we're all sort of feeling out what we can do, what we want to do, what we should do, and that's difficult to do every quarter, where everyone sort of forgets about this. So I could make that, personally, I can make that work in my schedule. I can meet more regularly. It's not a burden.
Yeah. And I guess it's really also up to our individual schedules whether we could make that happen.
Right.
We may have the absolute desire to meet more frequently, but on a practical sense, is it really practical? Is it something that we could do within our own either work, family, or other schedules? But I'm hearing from Joe that, yeah, it's possible for him, and I don't know if it's possible for other people as well, or it's,
What do we propose? 30 days, 60 days?
I think, I would think the most time would be 2 months, and I could go for 2 months at this point.
Okay.
I'm amenable to that.
I'm in
Is
agreement.
that the term bi-monthly? Just for my clarity's
Yeah,
sake?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Sort of
Yeah.
quarterly.
So-
And then in between the meeting, obviously, so we get subcommittees set up, then they're doing work in between the bi-monthly meetings, and then
Right.
there's report back, and we see what's going on, so.
Yeah, that'd be great. So, can we have a motion?
Is it for a certain day?
No, a motion to change it from quarterly to bi-monthly.
Staying on the third Wednesday of every month at 6, that's when the room is
Okay.
available.
Depending on availability.
Yeah,
Really just change that word quarterly. What does that
quarterly
look
to
like?
bi-monthly.
Okay.
Well, and Kalina, you also have an issue if the third Wednesday is actually not available. Third Wednesday is CBRD at 5:30 and Arts Commission, but because the first of the month is on a weird day this week, everything shifted. So really, this is Community Police Review Board and Arts Commission night on third Wednesday of third week on a Wednesday. Sorry to interrupt.
So what Wednesday is available to us?
I don't know how that is falling right now, because I do believe we had 2 already scheduled full out, right? Because you got this quarterly, the next one. Okay, yeah, that is interesting, what that's gonna look like on the calendar. Let me just real quickly do this. So if this is April, the third one, that would put us at April, May, June. The third one, I see what he's saying, and then.
That would be the 18th.
So that would be the 18th. And then,
Can it not be the second or the fourth
Yeah,
Wednesday?
yeah, we were really narrowed down. We had done this a few times. Let me just try to do something real quick. Uh-oh. Okay. So I said that would be.
Instead of putting you on the spot to figure it out like right now, is it enough for us to say and vote on a motion that we would like to meet every other month? And then you can give us some dates and like how to make that work, and then we could figure out over email rather than put you on the spot?
I love that.
Yeah, I thought that might be
Thank
nice.
you. I appreciate
All right, so I would move that the commission meet every other month going forward at a date and time that works in the city's schedule and consistent with our schedules. We'll figure that out later.
Do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Third, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that passes every other month.
Thank you. And so did you move that, was that agenda item number 6 moved up?
I think we kind of did take that a little.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, just for my,
So we're
me
not,
keeping track of,
we are not reaffirming.
of this meeting.
Revised quarterly meeting.
We revised it.
We're killing the.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so we've got that. I think one of the other things I wanted to discuss was this receiving public comments. So I don't know if you saw.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so we had a public commenter, and it felt awkward in some ways. I mean, not while he was here, but the aftermath felt awkward because he was emailing us kind of rather persistently, members of the committee, and asking us to do things that were really not within our purview. He wanted the local papers to apologize to him and things like that, which we have absolutely no power to be able to order the papers to do. But I just didn't know whether we wanted a discussion on how do we receive public comments? How do we handle that? Are there any broad parameters on doing that? That was our sole experience with public commenters, but I'm sure it won't be our last. So, any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so, yes, that's where I got mine. I'm gonna look at it here. I'm not gonna put it up there yet because I didn't want to send you guys little pieces of stuff until I get it all compiled and considered out at once. But there's a little discussion on how the public comment is generally handled. And so, there are, with that agenda that is really kind of pre-templated, if you will, for the various advisory boards. There is kind of that approach of, sticking to the time where they come to the podium, but I don't think they necessarily speak to what's on your agenda, so it's like separate. So maybe what you guys could do is collect that public comment, and you discuss that maybe if it's interested enough to you, or if it really fits your realm, maybe you decide on approaching that, publicly at the next meeting, unless it's something, I don't know if you're feeling like you're wanting to personally respond to like that individual versus like the topic. You know, I guess, yeah, that would be, I probably would refrain from responding, you know, the same daytime, whatever meeting that you're receiving the comment, if you will. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah, and just to add to that, please, if I could jump in for a second here. So, yes, in Resolution 7542 of the city, it speaks in section 2D about public comments, and it kind of spells that out and defines it, and kind of speaks to if public comment is allowed during the meeting, any person desiring to comment is encouraged to provide their name and zip code. The presiding officer may limit the time of each person based upon the number of people wishing to speak and the amount of time available for public comment portion of the meeting. When public comment is accepted, and it kind of have these other two steps in here, if you will. But generally, for like a city commission meeting, most people get 3 minutes to speak. But depending on, like it says that there's depending on the amount of people and what if it's germane to a topic, or if it falls under a specific item, or if it's just kind of open for public comment. So you may see with certain city commission meetings, there are certain things that the public can speak to on the agenda, and then there's like an open public comment section where you can speak to things that's not on the agenda. So in here, there's also in the policy where it speaks to, depending on if things are germane to the business of the body, what's being discussed, the chairperson and/or the staff liaison does have the sort of authority to kind of reel certain things in, especially if there's elements of disrespect or things that can be deemed as inappropriate. So if somebody just is kind of speaking to kind of provide public awareness of a matter that's not really within the wheelhouse of the Human Relations Commission, you all can listen and take that under advisement, but don't have to spring to action, especially right then on the spot. So hopefully that was helpful. And I can kind of, what I'm thinking about, because there seems to be a lot of questions and maybe not complete answers from staff right now. But what Kalina and I can do, we can meet and kind of look at the minutes of this meeting and kind of recap some things and try to provide some additional report backs to you all. Or we'll put a draft together of some things and maybe meet with the chairperson and maybe the vice chairperson and kind of see what all we need to kind of report back to provide some better clarity to you all. Because as I'm listening, even with the vote for amending the frequency of the meetings, something like that probably would also fell under the requirement or definition of calling for a special meeting. If you're like, hey, we want to take action on something and vote for something specifically in a timely manner, that may also could have been something that could have been deemed as a special meeting for it. So I plan to get with Kalina and maybe Chairperson Koo to also kind of say, hey, these were some of the maybe unanswered or lingering questions from the last advisory board meeting. Maybe we can communicate that out to you all in email and see if this provides some additional clarity for some things. A lot of this stuff is new, so appreciate you all bearing with us.
Okay.
Well, have any of y'all watched the public comments during the city commission meetings?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're public servants now, and we're going to get public comments that we don't want sometimes. We have to take all of them.
Sure.
And we're going to get people who make us uncomfortable sometimes. That's part of our gig.
Well, I think any leadership position, that's part of the gig.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I see our role as really servants to the public, so they should be able to comment. And some will be constructive comments, I think, and some maybe not so constructive, at least in our eyes. But yeah, we'll take all comments, and we'll try to do with them what we can. I mean, a lot of the comments, there's just nothing we can do. It's not in our purview, or it's not in our power. But I think there's value in listening.
One of the things I think is missing in some public comments in some arenas, around the world, is it's what the people have to say, the people that were elected or chosen to serve. I'd like to see them added to the minutes. A community I've lived in, public comments were added to the minutes.
Part of the minutes,
Yeah, it's what the people had to say.
as opposed to just a line, public comments occurred.
Yeah. And I don't know, that might be controversial to some. I don't know if it's allowed by the city. I know it's not what our commission does, so there's not a precedent for it here. Well, that's not true. It used to be done when I commented to the city back in the 80s and 90s, but it was taken out at some point. It wasn't detailed. It was just general comments about
Right, I mean, I can see at least.
general topic.
The subject matter
Yeah.
of the comment.
But it kept record of what the community had to say, what they were talking about.
Okay, what do you guys
Okay,
think?
and that was in regards to minutes. I'm just keeping these
I would defer to the city on
Yeah,
whatever
Frank.
the policy is on the detail of the minutes.
some.
We have our, I mean, for
You guys are really
our own faculty
giving me,
meetings, we
you're
have
giving me
policies
something
that
to,
keep it very general
you're
for
really
the
getting this in order.
reasons, because they're public documents and we
Yeah.
don't want them too detailed. And so good minutes are often are vague minutes, I always thought.
I mean, I would also,
I mean, reasonable minds can disagree on that.
yeah.
So the way
Well,
it's
the thing is that we record all of these
Or in the ends.
Yeah, I mean, the whole
meetings as
meeting is
well.
recorded.
Yeah, so that's always, so it's really, it kind of can go into one of those things where, will staff time allow for, a very detailed minute? That's just one, thing I can think off the top of my mind, but no, we can definitely get that more confirmed and figure out what that looks like for us.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a line there that says public comments occur.
Well, that's
be beneficial
actually
to
different
put
for
it in
us.
the back end?
This meeting records public
we don't
comments.
have
The
to
city doesn't,
force
no
it,
longer
does it?
records
No.
public comments.
Oh, we're talking, yeah.
The city commission.
I'm sorry, are you suggesting that if we do have public comments, that we make it a little bit more detailed than what the city does at this point?
That is my suggestion. It may not, I might be a minority, I admit that.
All right. Oh, I don't even know where I'm looking at you.
Okay. Right. It's just one of those things where I can see both pros and cons of doing that. I think, I'm thinking theoretically, I really like the idea of being able to put that down. At least the subject, first, do we identify the citizen? Or do we just say, citizen spoke about this, and having the citizen anonymous in the minutes? Or do we put, Mr. Joe Smith of, 402, whatever street? Because oftentimes we ask them, do we ask them to identify their address and that they live here? Because I know that.
Just a zip code, no?
Yeah, I think Ferris said the zip code, right?
But, and it's encouraged. It's
Yeah. Not even required.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm not even sure what the limits are.
Yeah, they're not required to identify themselves, they're asked to.
Right.
So a citizen can speak anonymously.
Excuse me.
Via email as well.
Okay, so, yeah, we'll definitely,
Although the email is what
Get
was
that.
getting with that, I mean, to your point earlier with that previous public commenter emailing us as a group, that raises Kansas Open Meetings Act issues. And so we really can't
Right.
receive public comment on email to all of us outside of an actual meeting,
Right.
so.
So I've seen in the city commission where they add it as an attachment versus
I think,
us giving
we
email.
can get that all ironed out. Like I said, I still don't even know that is something that will be would be best for our practices to put all that information on there. But like I said, it is, just keep that idea that the video is always available. And so to capture those, if you want to capture those exact comments,
Anyone can do
you
that.
can, you can review, you can
Okay, so
view them.
We have a record of it already. It's just not on the written minutes, but it is on the video itself. Which
And
is-
I think that's fine.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Do we want to talk about how long they can talk? 3 minutes, 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, it's 3 minutes.
Is it 3 minutes?
Yeah, it's 3 minutes.
So-
Remember, we kind of went over that earlier in this, yeah.
So it can't be manipulated more or less.
Well, it's at a time period according to the commission. We could choose our own time period.
Right. You know, and part of it might be the queue, you know, if there are 14 people waiting to talk, you know, that'll be different than if there's just one person. So I guess it'd be up to, you know, could
We'll
be
be
up to
here all
us.
night.
Yeah, it could be up to the chair.
To the chair's
Yeah.
discretion on that night.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got 45 minutes. Yeah, we can make it discreet. The chair's discretion.
Yes, so to the point of, I guess, time with public comment, yeah, in the resolution does speak to, actually in 2 different sections, they kind of have a little bit things that might be somewhat, it might appear to be conflicting. Typically, I know for city commission meetings, citizens are allowed 3 minutes. The resolution speaks and almost encourages 3 minutes, but to some degree, the chairperson does have some discretion, especially if there's, 100 people who might be present, because also in the policy it speaks to, or in the resolution it speaks to meetings not being able to go past 11 p.m., right? So 200 people show up for a meeting at 3 minutes apiece, whatever the math is on that, of course, it can't extend past 11 p.m. as well. So chairperson has some discretion if they want to make comments 2 minutes or 1 minute to be able to still address the purpose of the meeting, the business that's on the agenda for that night.
Right. Okay. Understood. Any other thoughts about public comments?
I do think it might be smart to have a baseline, assuming we might have a public commenter. So is 3 minutes what we're deciding on? And then discretion of the chair?
Sure, that'd be fine. I'd like 3 minutes. It's a lot longer than it seems.
Do you have the ability to use the timer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I take that as a yes.
That's a yes.
Okay. All right.
Can we structure it in a way that it's on the back end, so we're not forced to address it there and then?
The public comments?
Or is that the board's intention, to address it during the?
That I do have an issue with. When the city moved the comments to the end of it, it limited people's ability to participate, that use public transportation, that have babysitters. I think that causes a problem for certain people to be able to participate full in the commission. People have to sit through 2, 3, 4 hours of city commission meetings, and people who use public transportation, have babysitters, aren't able to participate like they used to be able to. I don't think that's inclusive.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, you still got to put a time on it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll still
Where?
put a time on it, but we,
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you meant at the end of the meeting.
No.
I
my question was, like,
apologize.
where to put it?
I
As far as
misunderstood.
like on what agenda, where? Like in the middle, the beginning, the end?
oh,
Oh, at the opening of the meeting.
yeah, it's in the meeting.
I'm sorry, I thought you meant it. I misunderstood. I apologize.
No.
I completely misunderstood.
Okay.
Looks like
Yeah.
the only thing you have left really on this, we'll get all that information over. You're rolling with the 3, just as a general. I mean, I'm sure you're not, that's up to you if you want to be very stickler, about it. That would be you when we're doing it. But 3 is what will be on that agenda. And then, I think I got everything else covered. Did you want to address the last one, update on?
Yeah, the last thing was the update on the balancing act budget during our last meeting. I think Farris had informed us that we might be contacted by the commission to participate in the city's balancing act, budget balancing act. So and I don't know if any of you guys were invited by email. I was invited like the day before, it was gonna happen, so, and I couldn't do that. But Ferris, any information on the whole balancing act budget thing?
Yes, so thanks for the follow-up on that. So yes, the goal was for some city staff out of the communication department to kind of push out an invitation for all the various advisory boards to be able to participate in what's a tool that was called Balancing Act, which allows citizens and community members to kind of help the city sort of balance the sort of budget shortfall. From that, then that feedback was to go to the city commission for them to entertain and kind of give some weight and some thought and assessment to what the community members are thinking in terms of, is it raising fees or raising taxes or, reducing staff, how they go about sort of balancing the budget for the city. So they were able to hear that feedback and entertain it and kind of speak to it on April 1st city commission meeting. And so that was the update. And now they're still kind of giving some additional consideration to that as we continuously move forward and have this sort of budget schedule before the city commission have to adopt the city's budget. So they're still just trying to figure out what's the best course of action to take. Other different departments and department directors are trying to figure out how to best meet their budget targets for their departments to kind of help with the overall city's budget. So we're still in the process. It has to go through a few more steps before the city manager on July 8th have to propose a formal budget to the city commission on July 8th.
Okay. All right, anything else? So in terms of calendar, I guess our next meeting will be in 2 months. Colleen will give us, hopefully,
Tentatively, it is,
what our options
I
are.
had the tentative exception of that date, which was the 18th.
The third Wednesday, that works?
Yeah, was that the 18th?
Yeah, I think that's the third Wednesday of
You had-
June is
okay,
the
yeah, you had it
18th.
right. So, yeah, it's the 18th, so it is a tentative exception, so it looks like it's available.
Oh,
That's
So we'll try to kind of start it from there and see if we can keep it on that schedule. And I'll confirm that with you guys.
Okay, so June 18th at 6 o'clock is okay?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
And I had a little difficulty finding that date on the webpage. When
As far as just like the.
looking,
the
looking,
meeting,
looking for
meeting
HRC,
calendar.
yeah, looking for HRC
Um,
meetings calendar. Is there a way we can make that more prominent?
We can take that suggestion and find out the answer to that as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's on the city commission webpage, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, it is. I mean, it's going to be on there. I don't know, search wise. I don't know if it just pops up. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's always going to be on that meetings calendar under each advisory board's slot. There'll be an agenda attached and that date, and then. But it may not be. This is 2 months in advance, so.
Yeah.
It may not be on the calendar until 2 weeks before the day.
Yeah, what's coming up on the right-hand side, there's a list of all the meetings, and when you click on that, it'll kind of pop up and it'll show the previous minutes, previous meetings minutes, and then the agenda or the draft agenda for
Mhm.
the upcoming meeting, and then a little tab where you can click for the video of the last meeting, I guess, so.
See, I'm just wondering if maybe if someone's researching the Human Relations Commission on the city's webpage,
I want to make it easier for.
it might,
For
yeah,
your average citizen to do that.
yeah.
Yeah, we've definitely been thinking about kind of what that, just in general, that being able to have access to certain things that may not pop up immediately in a search, or it doesn't seem like it's very apparent on the main sites or landing, home pages or whatnot. But I think that is something maybe you guys could work on as well, is to figure out how to better advertise your commission, but within, the resources that we'll have available or whatever else that is, whatever that means, so.
Yeah, and so as of now, I think to what Chairperson Koo had spoke to, if we go to like the city's website, and I can, maybe I can share my screen here and just kind of show what that looks like. Let's see if I can. I hope. Okay, yes, I think this one. Let's see. Are you all able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so here we're, like the schedule of meetings, so if we scroll down here for the Human Relations Commission, yes, under this section, it usually shows the meetings that have already occurred or the recent meetings. So you can either click in here, or you can kind of go over here to the right panel and kind of look for just some of the upcoming meetings. So if the Human Relations Commission does have a meeting, it should kind of show up over here, or somebody can scroll down. And this goes out to at least, I guess, May 14th, so within like the next month. But let me double check and see what happens if we click on recent meetings here. Or this will be, so the agenda and, okay, yeah, so I guess that's be the best way to kind of see within our upcoming meetings, I guess. So within the next month, what's the upcoming meetings? But you can go to the Human Relations Commission page here to show the previous meetings, but not the upcoming meetings. I know our communications department is looking to do some restructuring to our city's website, and that's slated for this year to kind of figure out what some updates might be. And I know the city commission have spoken to this as well, but it's making our city's website more user friendly to be able to more easily find things. Of course, that's like a large sort of task to tackle, but hopefully there's some updates to that as well. But thanks for pointing that out. Appreciate that as well. So, Sharon.
Thank you. All right. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
I'll
Was there a
second.
second for that?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, adjourn. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Yes. See you in June.
See you in 2 months. Wow.